Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining Research Nova Scotia's information session for the Undergraduate and Summer Research Scotia Scholars Competition. My name is Kirsten Mosier. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Research Support Officer for Research Nova Scotia. I will be your host for today's event, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Megan Bellefontaine and Kelly Hancock, who will be here to help with the Q&A session at the end of the session. I would like to begin by acknowledging that Research Nova Scotia is in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship that were struck in 1725-26 that have established a long-standing relationship between the nations. We are all treaty people. I also want to recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kmaq known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. We will ask that you please enter any questions into the Q&A section found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You may enter questions at any time during the presentation, and we will do our best to answer all questions at the end of the webinar. I will also provide my contact information, so you may reach out to me at any time. I will note that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on the RNS website early next week. With that, I'm just going to turn off my camera and we'll get started. Today, we will cover a variety of topics, including a brief introduction to Research Nova Scotia, an overview of the Scotia Scholar Award, the application process and review process, evaluation criteria, and finally, a short Q&A session. I also wish to acknowledge that this webinar may be falling during your exam period. If you are reviewing this as a recording after the fact, please do not hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. Research Nova Scotia was founded in 2019 to support, organize, and coordinate research in our province. Our research strategy has been organized into 4 areas: improved quality of life for Nova Scotians, healthy people and healthcare systems, climate change adaptation and resilience, and sustainable bioeconomy. These areas represent some of the most pressing needs of the province. Each area is made up of 4 corresponding missions, which help to give shape to the ways research can contribute to achieving progress for Nova Scotia. This mission-oriented approach to research means we start with what we want to accomplish and build a research agenda and coalition of partners and projects to help achieve these goals. We seek to support creativity, diversity, and ingenuity in the research community's responses to our mission challenges. Funding for this year's Scotia Scholars Award is provided by the Nova Scotia Department of Health and Wellness. As such, all submissions considered for funding must reflect the health pillar of Research Nova Scotia's mission-oriented strategy, which uses research to support a healthy population and a strong healthcare system. In their submission, applicants must demonstrate how the project contributes to one or more of Research Nova Scotia's health missions. First, advanced disease detection, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. Through life and health sciences research, including lab work, clinical trials, and social science studies, scientists are improving our understanding of the ways in which diseases impact the human body, how they can be detected earlier, and more accurately, ways to treat disease and preventative measures that can reduce the chance of disease. With this mission, Research Nova Scotia is looking for improved methods of diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of diseases impacting Nova Scotians' health. Second, strengthen our healthcare delivery system. To strengthen the healthcare system, it is vital to integrate public policy and decision-making with practitioners and clinicians, and to take a whole system view of healthcare delivery. With an aging population and increasing healthcare costs, money alone cannot solve the challenges. This mission aims to harness the creativity of our healthcare system for innovative and efficient improvements that can lead to a stronger, more sustainable system. We want to achieve the outcome of an efficient, supportive, and accessible healthcare system that works for all Nova Scotians. Third, care for vulnerable populations. This mission seeks to build resilience in the system by focusing on the people who need the most care and those who face barriers to equitable access or equal opportunity for health outcomes in Nova Scotia. While every member of society faces vulnerability at some point or other throughout their lifetime, there are segments of the population that face additional systemic challenges, including African Nova Scotians, Indigenous communities, people living in poverty, people with mental illness or addiction, people with disabilities, and seniors. Building a resilient society means caring for every member. We are looking to build a population with compassionate, effective healthcare access, no matter their race, religion, economic circumstances, or age. Lastly, prevent negative impacts to health and well-being. This mission supports preventative healthcare and healthy living at all ages and in all regions of the province. While it is impossible to avoid all illness, disease, or need for primary care, this mission addresses the ways in which people can lead healthier, more fulfilling lives. The outcome on which this mission is built is a population that improves the health of future generations. The 24-25 Scotia Scholars Award provides financial support to students with exceptional potential who are or wish to be engaged in a health research project at participating institutions. Recipients will participate on a project supported by a research supervisor. This award will support the growth and retention of highly skilled individuals who are advancing and translating knowledge in disease detection, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention, strengthening healthcare delivery systems, caring for vulnerable populations, and promoting better opportunities for future health and well-being. The current iteration of Scotia Scholars is open to 2 levels of candidates, those in undergraduate programs and those enrolled at NSCC. Regardless of their level, the award will enable student researchers to develop new research skills and gain increased confidence by having hands-on experience in active research and exposure to the research process. The financial support provided by the award allows students to hopefully focus solely on their academic commitments and thus enables them to achieve higher academic success, finish their degree on time, engage in professional development opportunities, and more. Some students have reported that this higher academic standing allowed them to continue to higher education and have a competitive advantage when applying for additional funding. The undergraduate program is for students who are enrolled full-time and have completed at least 2 full years of an honors or advanced major undergraduate degree program at one of the participating institutions, and is engaged or interested in participating in health research aligned with RNS's health missions. The award provides up to 16 weeks, 4 months of funding of up to $6,250 per year. Note, University of King's College students may hold the award for up to 8 months. The summer research program is for students enrolled at NSCC as of the deadline who are engaged in research aligned with RNS's health missions. The award also provides up to 4 months of funding of up to $6,250 per year. This year, we have added an additional question to the About the Project section of the application to allow for further information on the potential outcomes and impacts of your project for Nova Scotia. You will be asked to answer, if your project is successful, how do you envision the results could be used in Nova Scotia? We will also discuss more about the sorts of information to provide in this question later on in the presentation. This year, we have three institutions participating in the undergraduate competition: Cape Breton University, Universitè Sainte-Anne, and University of King's College, and one institution, Nova Scotia Community College, participating in the summer research program. To be eligible for an undergraduate award, students must be enrolled full-time in and have completed at least 2 full years of an honors or advanced major program at a participating institution. Alternatively, if you are enrolled in a post-baccalaureate program at Cape Breton University, you may be eligible to apply for this award. In addition to these criteria, all applicants must be engaged in research activities that align with Research Nova Scotia's health missions. They must achieve first-class average over the previous 2 years of study. However, in some circumstances, institutions can offer a Scotia Scholar Award to applicants who have not obtained first-class average. A note as well that if you're enrolled part-time, you should provide your GPA for the equivalent of 2 full years of full-time study based on the definition of full-time at your institution. We also refer to this in the application guidelines, so feel free to go there for further information. Additionally, students must be in good standing for enrollment in the upcoming school year. Successful applicants must maintain all applicable eligibility criteria for the full duration of the award. If a student finishes their program of study before the end of the award, they can continue to hold the award only if this is approved by the supervisor, institution, and Research Nova Scotia. Applicants may only hold one Scotia Scholar Award at a time, and all external funding must be reported to the institution to ensure that students do not exceed the institutional funding caps. Finally, it is important to note that awards may not be transferred to another institution. To be eligible for a summer research award, students must be enrolled at NSCC as of the deadline date for applications. All applicants must also be engaged in research activities relevant to Research Nova Scotia's health missions, have obtained a minimum overall average of 70% over the previous year's study. Again, if you're enrolled part-time, be sure to provide your average for the equivalent of 1 year of full-time study and refer to NSCC's definition of full-time study for your particular program. You must be in good academic standing in your NSCC program and have approval from a research supervisor. Have been registered in at least one of the 2 terms immediately before holding the award. And successful applicants must maintain all applicable eligibility criteria for the full duration of the award. Again, if a student finishes their program of study before the end of the award, they may continue to hold the award only if approved by the supervisor, institution, and Research Nova Scotia. Applicants may only hold one Scotia Scholar Award at a time, and these awards are also not transferable to another institution. An applicant must have at least one supervisor and may choose to have up to 2 supervisors. Each supervisor must be a person who has been deemed eligible by their institution. That is, they are authorized to independently supervise students. Each supervisor is required to sign a supervisor agreement form, which is provided both on Research Nova Scotia's website and through the JURA application form. If there is co-supervision, Each supervisor must sign a separate supervisor agreement form. By signing this form, the supervisors agree to review and approve the students' progress reports when applicable, work plans when applicable, and final reports to ensure they accurately represent the project's progress and results. They must ensure progress is made and that the funds are used per the purpose of the award. Supervisors must notify RNS and the administering institution's student funding office if the student is no longer involved in the project, or if the project topic or objectives have changed significantly from the submitted proposal. If the supervisor is no longer able to supervise the student, or they should no longer be employed at the administering institution, they must inform Research Nova Scotia immediately. Finally, supervisors will be copied on all reporting reminder emails sent to students. And if Research Nova Scotia is unable to obtain a progress or final report from a student, the supervisor will assist with retrieving these reports. Applications are currently open in Research Nova Scotia's grant management portal, Jura. Following today's webinar, there are several important deadlines to note. All applications must be submitted through Jura by 1 p.m. Atlantic Time on Thursday, January 30th, 2025. Jura will not allow submissions that come in after this time, and any application not submitted by this date and time will be marked ineligible for consideration. We strongly recommend that you do not leave your submission to the last minute. Technical errors often occur at the worst possible moments, and exceptions will not be made under any circumstances. Both the leadership and supervisor reference letters must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. Atlantic Time on Thursday, January 30th, 2025. These letters must be submitted via the Apply at Research Nova Scotia email address. Letters must be submitted directly from the referee. Letters that are submitted late or by the student will not be accepted under any circumstances. It is the responsibility of the student to arrange to have these letters sent to Research Nova Scotia. Remember, your referees are very likely busy people. We recommend that you reach out to them as soon as possible to make sure they have enough time to complete your letter of reference. In this correspondence, be sure to include the deadline for submission, as again, late letters will not be accepted. If one or both letters are not received by the deadline, the application will be marked ineligible. Funding decisions will be available in March 2025, and funding will typically start in May 2025. Your exact start date will be determined in collaboration with your supervisor, your institution, and Research Nova Scotia. So, how do you apply for this award? The first step is to confirm your eligibility for the award. Be sure to review the criteria mentioned earlier in the presentation to ensure that you are eligible for the award. Applicants who do not meet the eligibility criteria will be deemed ineligible. The criteria can be found on Research Nova Scotia's website, in this slide deck, in the application guidelines, and embedded in the online application form. Next, you must register for a Jura account and complete an EDIA self-declaration. Jura is Research Nova Scotia's online grant management portal. All applications must be submitted through the Jura portal. As a first step, you will navigate to Jura and either log in using the existing system credentials if you've applied for a previous award, or if you are new to the system, click the register button to sign up for the system. Once you're on the registration page, you will first need to look up your organization. This should be the institution at which you will be enrolled during the length of your Scotia Scholars Award. If you select the wrong institution at sign up, please reach out to our Jura help desk and we will be happy to resolve this issue. While entering the name of your institution, A drop-down box with all matching entries will appear. Be sure to select the entry from this pop-up box to associate your account with the appropriate institution. Next, you will complete the contact information section. Please note that all sections marked with an asterisk are required. Finally, you will complete an equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility self-declaration. EDIA strengthen the research community and the quality, social relevance, and impact of research. EDIA-informed analyses, systems, and practices ensure barriers faced by underrepresented or disadvantaged groups are identified and addressed, which in turn enhances the integrity of application selection processes, strengthens research outputs, and increases the overall excellence of research. All information provided to Research Nova Scotia will be kept strictly confidential and will not be shared with third parties. If you do not want to self-identify, you have the option to select Prefer Not to Say for each question. You may change your answers to these questions at any time by following the instructions outlined in the How to Complete an EDIA Self-Declaration document on the Scotia Scholars landing page of the RNS website. When all fields are complete, click the blue Submit button to create your account in Jura. Shortly after submitting, you will receive an automated email from SmartSimple with a link to set your password. Once your password is set, you will need to agree to the Jura privacy policy and terms of use and will be redirected to your user homepage. As noted, the EDI self-declaration is required of all applicants. For users who have an existing Jura account, they will need to log into the system with their existing credentials, click on the personal profile link on their homepage, and select the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility tab. As with the previous option for new users, if you do not want to self-identify, you have the option to select Prefer Not to Say for each question. Now that you've successfully registered for Jura and completed your EDIA self-declaration, you may now start working on your application. From your Jura homepage, you will select the Funding Opportunities section. From here, locate the opportunity associated with your institution and click the Apply Now button to launch your application. The first thing you will need to do is click the Save Draft button to start your application. This will assign you a unique application number in the system and will allow you to return to your application at any time. Next, you will select either Undergraduate or College Student Award from the award type drop-down list. This will populate the eligibility criteria and questions for that award level. You can click on the various tabs located at the top of your application to access the different application sections. All questions marked with an asterisk are mandatory. You may save your application at any time using the Save Draft button and return to working on it at a later date. In subsequent sessions, you can find your draft application in the In Progress Application section of your Jura homepage. While working on your application, you must follow the guidelines for this opportunity. The detailed guidelines document can be found on the Research Nova Scotia website on the Scotia Scholars landing page. We strongly recommend that you take the time to read the guidelines thoroughly to set up your application for success. You should refer to the guidelines often. We have noticed that there are a few areas of the application where there is often confusion or uncertainty. As such, we wanted to dedicate some time in this webinar to provide some additional clarification around the following: project description and plain language summary, objectives, the supervisor agreement form, mission selection, the CV submission, transcripts, and outcomes and knowledge translation. First, we will look at the project description and plain language summary. The plain language summary should provide a clear and concise overview of the project, written in a way that is understandable for a non-scientific audience. Avoid using jargon, abbreviation, and technical terms, and if you must use them, provide a clear explanation of what they mean. The project description should also provide a succinct summary of the proposed project, touching on the following points: description of the issue and topic to be researched, statement of the research objectives, methodology, and your hypothesis, explanation of the potential impact of the project on the field of health research and the health of Nova Scotians, a brief description of how the results of the research will be translated back to those who will use them. This should also be further detailed in the outcomes section we will touch on further in the presentation. Next, we will touch on objectives. To start thinking about how to develop your research objectives, you will first want to state the overall aim of your research. Your objectives should follow from that, in that they are the expected outcomes from your research as you pursue that aim. Most projects will have multiple outcomes, but we recommend that you are concise. There should be no more than 5 objectives. In addition to objectives stemming from the aim of the research, RNS also allows for objectives that demonstrate how the project will increase the researcher's capacity. For example, using a specific methodological approach or using a piece of specialized equipment. While acceptable, these objectives should supplement the main research objectives rather than be the focus, and should not include objectives related to academic or student activities. Remember, if successful, you will be asked to report your progress towards these objectives. Some examples of appropriate outcome-focused and capacity-building objectives are included on this slide for your consideration. As mentioned, more is not always better. Applicants should include as few objectives as necessary to allow Research Nova Scotia to understand what you want to accomplish. Students should not include academic objectives such as obtaining an A average or completing your program of study. Third, we will look at the supervisor agreement form. The supervisor agreement form outlines the responsibilities of the supervisor over the duration of the award. If there is co-supervision, a separate form must be submitted and signed by each supervisor. All applications will be reviewed to ensure that the supervisor who signs this form is the same as is listed in your application. Be sure to complete the information at the top of the form as requested. If a completed and signed version of this agreement is not received by RNS, your application will be deemed ineligible. Next, we will look at mission selection. As noted earlier in this presentation, funding for this year's Scotia Scholars Award is provided by the Nova Scotia Department of Health and Wellness. As such, all submissions considered for funding must be aligned with the health pillar of Research Nova Scotia's mission-oriented strategy, which uses research to support a healthy population and a strong healthcare system. When completing your application on JURA, you must select the Healthy People and Healthcare Systems mission area. Once the Healthy People and Healthcare Systems mission area is selected, several health missions will appear. Advanced disease detection, diagnosis, treatment, and prevention, strengthen our healthcare delivery system, care for vulnerable populations, and prevent negative impacts to health and well-being. Select the health missions that you feel best fit with your proposal and demonstrate how the project will contribute to achieving the mission selected. Applications that do not choose the Healthy People and Healthcare Systems mission area will be marked as ineligible for consideration. Next, we will review the CV requirements. All applicants must submit an up-to-date CV in PDF format. A Word version of the CV template containing all the information required can be downloaded from the Scotia Scholars Awards section of Research Nova Scotia's website. While CVs don't need to adhere to the exact formatting provided, they must contain all information requested in the same order it is listed in the template. This is so it is easy for the reviewers to navigate and compare all the applications. Next, I will talk briefly about transcripts. Applicants must upload transcripts from all current and past academic institutions. PDF copies of official transcripts are required for all past post-secondary institutions, and these must also include legends and transfer credits. A PDF copy of your unofficial transcript or grade report is acceptable for your current institution only and will be validated by the institution to ensure authenticity. Finally, let's touch on the new outcomes question. In this new question, you're asked to consider how you see the results of your research being used in Nova Scotia. We are looking to understand the key outcomes of your research project, which population or populations your research impacts, how this research will specifically benefit Nova Scotians, and how the results will be shared with the people it impacts or who it is meant to support, as well as with the research community. So now that we've reviewed the areas of the application to pay special attention to, we will move to the step of finalizing your application and submitting. While working on the application, there are 3 buttons at the bottom of the Jura screen. Save draft, withdraw, and submit. You will want to save draft frequently. Jura does not automatically save your work, so this is important to ensure you don't lose any of your work on your Jura application. Should you choose not to move forward in the competition, you may withdraw your application at any point before the deadline. When your application is complete, you will click the Submit button. When you choose to submit your application, you may encounter a submission error if a mandatory field of your application or the EDIA self-declaration has not been completed. You will need to navigate to the appropriate section of your application or personal profile to correct any of the errors. If you receive a submission 145 error, this means that you've pressed the Enter button while adding your objectives into the Jura system. To resolve this error, you will need to go to the About the Project tab on your application, scroll down to the Objectives section, go to the Objectives table, and delete the extra line. Then click Save and try again to submit. We encourage you to submit your application as early as possible to ensure that technical errors such as these do not prevent the submission of your application on time. I will also mention that it's worth noting that it is just me supporting applicants with application submission errors. So if there are multiple people calling about errors right in the minutes before the submission deadline, I might not be able to field all the calls in time. So please submit as early as you can. The final step in the application process is ensuring that your letters of reference are submitted to Research Nova Scotia. It is the responsibility of the applicant to arrange for 2 letters of reference, one from a supervisor and one from a person who can comment on the applicant's leadership abilities. These letters must be submitted via the apply@researchnovascotia.ca email address by the referee. Letters that are submitted late or by the student will not be accepted. Assessments should be completed by individuals that are familiar enough with the applicant's research and other abilities so they can provide a meaningful commentary. Applicants must contact their proposed references as early as possible to ensure they are willing and able to complete an assessment in time for the application deadline. I highly recommend sending friendly reminders to the referees to ensure they submit their letter on time. Nobody wants to be the reason your application is deemed ineligible. So ask early and ask often. Referees must send letters directly to Research Nova Scotia prior to the application deadline of 11:59 p.m. Atlantic time on Thursday, January 30th, 2025. Emails will be timestamped and referees will receive an auto reply. If one or both letters are not received by the deadline, the student application will be marked ineligible and not considered for funding. The supervisor letter of reference should come from the applicant's supervisor or potential supervisor and address the applicant's demonstrated and potential academic and research abilities. If a supervisor has not yet been identified, another faculty member may complete the academic reference letter. Please check with your institutional representative to clarify who is most appropriate for this role. The letter should specifically address the following attributes: thoughtful evaluation of all information, regardless of source, for example, quality of students' analytical skills, pursuing knowledge or acting on own initiative and seeking guidance only when appropriate, determined persistence in pursuit of goals despite obstacles or discouragement, creativity or ingenuity in problem solving, systematic, careful planning and coordination of activities, including an ability to complete projects in a timely manner, an inquiring mind and a strong desire to pursue new knowledge, a natural talent or acquired proficiency for scientific investigation, and finally, effective interpersonal, verbal, and written communication skills. Please note that if an applicant has not met the requirement for first-class standing, the supervisor letter should justify why the student should be considered for the Scotia Scholars Award. The leadership letter of reference must come from a person who can address the applicant's demonstrated and potential leadership abilities. Specifically, the leadership letter of reference should address the following: significant personal achievement, for example, athletic, artistic, cultural, entrepreneurial achievement, volunteerism, civic engagement, or community outreach. Specific leadership qualities, the ability to prioritize and maintain a balance between work and personal life, acts consistently and according to ethical values, and accepts personal accountability for the consequences of their actions and decisions. Finally, the student develops positive relationships with a diverse range of people, cares about and listens to what others say, is supportive of their peers, and is well respected, trustworthy, and dependable. Once the deadline has passed, the review process starts with Research Nova Scotia's eligibility check. Staff will assess all applications to determine whether they are complete and meet the eligibility criteria prior to sending the applications to the institutions. Applications that do not meet basic administrative eligibility criteria will be marked ineligible and not provided to the institution for consideration. Next, the list of eligible applications will be reviewed by each institution in accordance with their scholarship review practices and the assessment criteria outlined for this award. Once their review is complete, institutions will provide RNS with final recommendations for each application. Applicants may be recommended for funding, marked as alternate candidates, meaning they may receive the funding if another applicant declines the award, or marked as ineligible for funding. Research Nova Scotia will review all applications recommended for funding, including alternates, to ensure that they have demonstrated alignment with RNS's health missions. Research Nova Scotia will notify all applicants of funding decisions, and for successful applicants, will implement the process for award acceptance and payment. Undergraduate applicants will be evaluated based on their academic excellence, leadership qualities, research potential, and interest. More in-depth definitions for these evaluation criteria can be found on the Scotia Scholars landing pages of the Research Nova Scotia website. NSCC is responsible for the selection process for the Summer Research Award and will base decisions on 4 criteria: research alignment with Research Nova Scotia's health missions, applicants' interest in research, confirmation of supervisor support, and expected contribution to the research project. Finally, if you require support with your application, please do not hesitate to reach out to the appropriate person at your institution listed here. Technical issues related to application submission can be directed to helpdesk@researchns.ca. So thank you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. We will now open the floor to questions. And if there's any questions you don't want to ask in this format, please feel free to email me. My address is on the screen here. So there's a question here about when will the doctoral award application be launched in Jura? Can you confirm that Dalhousie is eligible? So the doctoral and master's applications competition typically occurs late February to April period, but details aren't finalized for the next offering of that. I can say Dalhousie is typically one of the institutions, but we can't confirm participating institutions at this time. If we want to review the recording of this later on, where would we access it? So, as I said, this should be available, recording and slides by the beginning of next week at the latest, and you'll be able to find it on Research Nova Scotia's website under the Scotia Scholars Funding Opportunity, the main undergraduate landing page. When you go there, you'll see a link to the webinar, and that will take you to the recording and the slides.
And Kirsten, there were a couple of questions that came through while you were doing your presentation that I'll just kind of quickly answer for everyone, just in case it's helpful to a few people. So someone had asked whether international students were eligible to apply, and absolutely yes, they are, provided that you are enrolled at an eligible or participating institution and you meet the rest of the eligibility requirements. We also had a question on how you would get a supervisor. So the best way to do that would be to reach out at the institution at which you are enrolled. And I believe Kirsten had a slide with the appropriate contact information just before this one. If you'd like to reach out to the individual listed there, they should be able to connect you with someone at your institution who could be an eligible supervisor for you for this award.
How is the funding for the research determined, and how long does the research hold? So as far as how it's determined for the funding, that's going to depend on those eligibility requirements and the alignment with RNS missions. And the duration of the award for most would be 4 months for that research project. I hope that helps. So I don't see any more questions coming through. So I just wanted to offer my thanks again for attending and for your interest in the Scotia Scholars Award. We look forward to receiving and reviewing your application. And as said, please don't hesitate to reach out by email if you do have any questions come up after the session that you'd like to connect on. Thanks again, everyone.